Bears Nation, the landscape in Chicago is shifting right now in ways that could fundamentally alter how this team approaches the rest of the season and beyond. And I need every single one of you to stay with me because what I'm about to discuss involves one of our most talented defensive players and a decision that could define our playoff aspirations. Welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your destination for breaking news, exclusive updates, and everything you need to know about our Chicago Bears. Today I've got information that's going to spark serious debate among the fan base, and I promise you're going to want to hear every detail before forming your opinion on this. Let me start by painting the picture of where we are right now as an organization. The Bears are sitting at 7-3, first place in the NFC North, and we're in the midst of our most promising season since 2018. We've got a legitimate shot at not just making the playoffs, but making some noise once we get there. Our offense has shown flashes of brilliance, and despite some inconsistency, there are pieces in place that suggest this team can compete with anyone on any given Sunday. But here's the reality that every honest Bears fan needs to acknowledge. Our defense has been a roller coaster all season long, showing moments of absolute dominance, followed by stretches where we look vulnerable and exploitable. Currently, the Bears' defense is ranked around 27th in total yards allowed, which is frankly unacceptable for a team with playoff aspirations. However, and this is crucial, we're leading the entire league in takeaways, ranked 8th in passing yards allowed and points per game and 5th in third down conversions allowed. Those are the numbers of a defense that has the talent and the scheme to be elite, but hasn't put it all together consistently. The question that's been dominating conversations in the building and among the coaching staff is this: what changes need to be made to take this defense from good to great during the most critical stretch of the season? One of the key players who's been at the center of these discussions is cornerback Kyler Gordon. For those who've been following the team closely, you know that Gordon has been dealing with injuries this season, specifically hamstring and groin issues that landed him on the injured list. He's a player known for his versatility as a cornerback, his ability to be a strong defender who interrupts plays and deflects passes at crucial moments. When healthy, Gordon is exactly the kind of player you want on the field during must-win games. But here's where things get complicated and where I need you to really pay attention, because the situation developing around Gordon could have massive implications for how this roster is constructed moving forward. The Bears made a significant move by bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson to fill in at cornerback during Gordon's absence. Gardner-Johnson has been solid, bringing experience and a different skill set to the secondary. The coaching staff has had the opportunity to see what this defense looks like with different personnel packages, different combinations of players, and different approaches to covering opposing receivers. Sometimes in football, injuries force teams to make adjustments that end up revealing something important about the roster construction, about which players fit best in certain schemes, and about what the optimal lineup actually looks like. Now, I want you to think about the broader context of where the Bears are as a franchise. We're not just trying to sneak into the playoffs and be happy with a wild card berth. The goal is to build a sustainable contender that can compete for division titles and deep playoff runs for years to come. That requires making difficult decisions about which players are essential to the long-term vision and which players, despite being talented, might be more valuable as trade assets that can help address other needs on the roster. General managers and coaching staffs have to constantly evaluate whether keeping a player serves the team better than moving that player for assets that can fill more critical holes. The Bears have some glaring weaknesses that have been exposed throughout this season. Our run defense has been inconsistent at best, struggling to contain opposing running backs and allowing too many explosive plays on the ground. We've had issues generating consistent pass rush from our defensive line, which puts extra pressure on the secondary to cover for extended periods. Our linebacker core has shown flashes but lacks the depth to sustain high-level play when injuries inevitably occur. These are the kinds of problems that can derail a playoff run if they're not addressed, and addressing them might require making some tough choices about the current roster. Here's where the situation with Kyler Gordon becomes particularly interesting, and where I need you to understand the full scope of what might be happening behind the scenes. Gordon is a talented player with value around the league. He's young, he's shown the ability to play at a high level when healthy, and he's the kind of cornerback that multiple teams would be interested in acquiring if he became available. The Bears have seen what the defense looks like without Gordon, and they've also seen the challenges of having a player who's been unable to stay on the field consistently due to injury concerns. These are the factors that front offices weigh when they're making decisions about the future of the roster. There's growing speculation, and I want to be very clear that this is based on conversations happening around the league and observations of how the Bears have been managing their roster, that the organization might be considering moving on from Kyler Gordon. Not because he's a bad player, not because they don't value what he brings when healthy, but because they believe the assets they could acquire by trading him could better address the more critical needs on this defense. It's a calculated strategic decision that prioritizes building the most complete roster possible, rather than holding on to players simply because they were draft picks or because they've shown potential. Think about what the Bears could potentially get in return for Gordon. We're talking about draft capital that could be used to address the run defense, to add depth at linebacker, or to bolster the pass rush. We're talking about the possibility of acquiring veteran players who can contribute immediately and help this team make a serious playoff push. The front office has to weigh whether Gordon's contributions when he's on the field outweigh what they could get by moving him to a team that values him even more highly and is willing to pay a premium price. The timing of this potential move is also significant. We're approaching the midpoint of the season with a 7-3 record and first place in the division. The Bears have massive games coming up against Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Green Bay twice, Cleveland, San Francisco, and Detroit to close out the season. That's a brutal stretch that will test every aspect of this roster. If the coaching staff and front office believe that moving Gordon and using those assets to address other needs gives them a better chance to win those games and secure a playoff spot, then it's a move they have to seriously consider, regardless of how fans might initially react. I want to address the emotional side of this because I know many of you have invested in Gordon as a player and want to see him succeed in a Bears uniform. Believe me, I understand that attachment. But we also have to be realistic about what it takes to build a championship contender in today's NFL. You cannot afford to have significant weaknesses on your roster when you're going up against the best teams in the league. If moving Gordon allows the Bears to shore up the run defense, add pass rush, or bring in another piece that makes this team more complete, then it's a move that serves the greater goal of winning football games and competing for championships. The defense has been mustering through periods of inconsistency all season, and the absence of Gordon, along with injuries to other players like Jalen Johnson, has exposed some of the depth issues on this roster. The Bears are leading the league in takeaways, which is fantastic and shows that the scheme and the playmakers are capable of creating game-changing moments. But being ranked 27th in total yards allowed is a red flag that cannot be ignored. Championship defenses don't give up that many yards consistently. Something has to change, and that change might involve making difficult personnel decisions that prioritize building the most balanced and complete defense possible. Let me be clear about something. I'm optimistic about where this team is headed, regardless of what happens with Gordon. The Bears are in first place. We've got a legitimate shot at the playoffs for the first time in years, and there's a foundation being built that suggests sustained success is possible. But getting to that next level, going from a playoff team to a championship contender, requires making bold moves and being willing to shake things up when necessary. If the front office believes that moving Gordon is one of those bold moves that positions us better for both this season and the future, then I trust the process, even if it's difficult, to see a talented player leave. The upcoming stretch of games will tell us everything we need to know about this team's identity and capabilities. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Green Bay, San Francisco, Detroit. That's a gauntlet that will test every single player on this roster. The coaching staff needs to put the best possible lineup on the field for those games, and if that means making changes to the secondary, adjusting the defensive scheme, or even moving players to acquire pieces that better fit what they're trying to do, then so be it. The goal isn't to make everyone happy. The goal is to win football games and bring a championship back to Chicago. So here's what I want to know from all of you watching right now. If the Bears did decide to move Kyler Gordon in a trade that brought back assets to address the run defense or pass rush, would you support that move? Do you think Gordon is an essential piece of this defense, or do you believe the team could be better served by using him as a trade chip to fill other needs? And what areas of this defense do you think are most critical to address as we head into the toughest part of the schedule? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to hear from Bears Nation on this potential franchise-altering decision. Make sure you're subscribed to Bears News Fan Report and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. I'm bringing you breaking news, insider analysis, and everything you need to stay connected with your Chicago Bears. Smash that like button if this video got you thinking about the roster construction and what moves need to be made. Share it with every Bears fan you know. And let's keep this conversation going as we push toward the playoffs. Bears Nation, we're in first place, we're in control of our destiny, and whatever moves are made will be done with one goal in mind: bringing championship football back to Chicago. Let's finish this season strong and show the league what Bears football is all about.